I think one of the first things that happened was that they provided us this mechanism where we all completed several kinds of individual assessments for that shed light on our leadership skills, our personality styles, and conflict styles. And I found that to be particularly helpful in really encouraging thinking about how you assemble a team, what your function is on a team, and therefore, what are the skills that you need to know are your natural tendencies and those that you're going to need to enhance in order to be the effective leader you need to be in any situation. Now, of course, that was particularly helpful when we were focusing as our team, Resilience Hawaii, for doing our Wicked Problem Impact project. And at the same time, it was also helpful as I was going back to my own organization and my work, thinking about how I configure different teams that I have. So already, I think that was one of those things that really got me going in thinking about myself as a leader. I think other components were certainly the cohort connections and the just-in-time modules around the behavioral health event interview. We have changed the way that we interview, and we added some questions, and they're now voted favorite question by most of our folks when we do our annual application process for new psychology trainees. And that's been something that I think will permanently be with us from clinical scholars at our organization. I also think that one of the parts that has grown across is I really appreciated the way that they have inserted content around building a great team, and particularly about how diversity enhances the greatness of a team. There were cohort connections about this. There's been content in our retreats and also in our just-in-time modules that focus specifically on the ideas about how to challenge yourself to think about diversity. Now, as a Native Hawaiian woman, I check lots of boxes if you're talking about it that way with respect to diversity. So how does this question or this dare apply to me? Well, it had a lot to do with how I configured my team of other kinds of folks, right? That had lots of familiarity with discussing issues of systemic bias and racism, or had lots of experience being in only one kind of group with a lot of like-minded folks, and then other folks who are used to a much more diverse environment where different ideas were constantly being put into play, but maybe they were in an environment where that was competitive or it was hostile. And so for us, this idea of how do you create this diverse team that's going to get you to excellence by thinking about how you've composed your team, and then how do you bring out the best in each member. I feel like I've always wanted to bring out the best in everyone that works with me, and yet this frame of it gave me a structure that allowed me to ask some better questions about the kinds of diversity that I was inviting in, and where does it really show up in our organization? Who gets to innovate and in what ways? And can I be more explicit about those things? All of that I feel was ignited by the beginnings of my work with the Clinical Scholars Program. The first and sort of biggest way that it jumps out at me is just the cohort that I get to work with. So as you know, the Clinical Scholars Program and my participation rolled right through the beginning and the thick of COVID, which is where we are right now. And what I want to say is there were definitely times during that I was challenged as a leader deeply, that I struggled a great deal to make sure that I had enough energy and gusto, that my own resilience was enough that I could keep my team resilient as we continued to provide behavioral health services when everybody around us was struggling. And what I found was that gathering with the cohort and sharing in their passion to do good across the country gave me hope. And I want to say that's the main piece of inspiration, is that I felt hope that even as hard as things were politically, as hard as things were with the pandemic, as hard as life can be sometimes, and as complex as the issues are that we face as a society, with all of these folks doing their part to do the good work across the country, I have hope that we can actually make change happen together. And in some ways, because we've done this training together, that change and that movement can have a similar language, can be aligned, as different as our strategies are going to be. I think sort of the other big piece of inspiration is really around, and it's one that I've grown in my appreciation for over the 2 years that I've been in the program, is feeling inspired by the wisdom of even investing in health leadership. When I first was invited to join a clinical scholars team and submit a proposal to participate, I understood that it was good to have leadership training, of course, But I guess I see all of the ways that I've been strengthened by this process and how my eyes see the system and its needs better as a result of having been a part of this. And I really get it that that has activated change in me, that it strengthened me, that when I look out at the rest of my career, I probably won't just put my head down and do the good work in mental health that I was already going to do. I see myself as being more involved and engaged in trying to move the world through various strategies. And those are strategies that were articulated and well understood by me over the course of being in the clinical scholars program. That I understood that you can have the very best program in the world, but if you don't know how to articulate and talk about it, nobody else knows and the world can't change. And I was somebody who woke up from a very long time ago deciding that what I wanted to do was take my two hands and everything that I'm good at and try to make the world better, to serve my community. So this idea that I can have extra tools and skills that have been provided to me, that have been given to me by the best support on the planet to help me learn how to and absorb these things into me, to do more of that, boy, that's something that I can't turn off how exciting that feels to me, that I have more tools to be able to do it. And it's amazing because there were times when I felt like, oh, pandemic, am I really going to be open enough to learn more tools right now? I'm tired as a leader. I'm tired as a health provider. What am I going to do? And I tell you, they have a certain kind of I want to say they have a very keen understanding of tired health professionals who are trying to continue doing the good work. And so they're able to infuse this learning into it and give it to us at the exact right moment you need it, in a way, so that the learning is happening in real time around real situations. It turns out I have to be a health leader every day. So having them give me these handoff of these touch points all along the way and the curriculum that's always there, and then these breathing points when we gather as a cohort, that format in and of itself was really inspired to me in the way that it was put together and the real investment it made, feeling really, really truly supported by Robert Wood Johnson Foundation as a health leader, knowing all of the sort of, in case of emergency, break glass, we have this kind of support and this kind of support. What that did to invigorate me as a leader and make me feel like, don't worry, if the sky falls, I have people backing me up. That did so much to carry me through probably the time I was most challenged as a health leader, which has been in the last 12 months. And so I'm really grateful for that. I feel like that's something that I feel like most of the time I feel like in my work, I've been very lucky that the right people come into my life at the right time. And this Robert Wood Johnson Foundation family that I've become a part of came along at exactly the right time for me as a health leader. The first of them has to do with my Resilience Hawaii team that I'm a part of and the work that we gathered together to do that inspired us joining the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Clinical Scholars Program. And that team has a fairly daring vision that we want to be a part of the movement, that we want to be a part of the movement that resolves homelessness in Hawaii. And we understood that with the gifts we have as a team and with the vision and hope we have, our best strategy for doing that was going to be focused on building resilience, both in the individuals that live in the community that don't have homes, that are trying their best to get through, that if we can strengthen their resilience, that will do a lot and go a long way toward the effort they have to do to navigate an often complex and challenging system. At the same time, we understood that a long-term sustainable impact was much more important than any good service we could do for just a short time. And so from the beginning, we aspired to have an impact now that would be lasting because of the strategies we used. As a result, we focused our efforts on training health professionals. And in that training, we combined several elements. We focused the training around diabetes and pre-diabetes care and prevention. So these are emerging health professionals who are just learning about what they want to do in healthcare. And we focused them on thinking about diabetes and pre-diabetes because of how pervasive the challenge is, but also because it's a perfect example where the systemic and structural challenges and barriers that individuals who are homeless encounter on a regular basis have a direct impact on their health. And so it was a perfect kind of focus area for us. So we focused on that. But we gave those emerging health professionals training, not just in how to work with diabetes and prediabetes and teach somebody how to do it. Certainly we did that. We also included some specific content around basics of homelessness and what an individual who lives in a homeless way lives like. We have components that talk about barriers that include bias and discrimination that they experience, as well as very practical and pragmatic barriers to the system that they experience. So they learn that piece. They also learn about leadership in times of crisis, and then they learn a resilience content. And this, we think, is kind of the driving energy in our effort, which is that we encourage the emerging health professionals to learn resilience for themselves as providers, and in a parallel way that they convey the same learning to their patients. Because if we can get emerging health professionals to feel resilient and able to continue this work and disavow them of any beliefs they have about how difficult it is to work with individuals who are homeless, we have now created another pathway of a sustained workforce of folks who are better equipped to take care of homeless individuals and instill this resilience in them so that they feel empowered both in their health through diabetes and through their lives in how they can persevere in the way that it requires, while we simultaneously work on efforts that improve the systems around them that created their circumstances in the first place. And so I would say that's maybe my first impact that we hope to have. Together as a team, that's what we aspire to do. Secondly, in my career, the next year and a half are going to be critically important time in healthcare in general, and in particularly in mental health, which is my domain. Since I began my career, and even before that, I knew I wanted to make a difference. I knew I wanted to make a difference for my community and in the world. I wanted to take all the gifts I had, my own skills, everything I learned, and have the biggest bang I could have. That's what I knew. And I also knew the job I was going to have didn't exist yet. So I endeavored in my career to build an organization that did exactly what I thought was the best kind of impact I could have. And with the support of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, I think that I'm closer or better equipped to do just that big vision. I wake up every day trying to make a difference in my community, every single day trying to serve the underserved. That's what I do. That's what drives me to wake up in the morning. And I feel better able to do that, especially as we ride through what COVID-19 does, to changes to the fabric of the way we provide healthcare and what our community needs. I'm going to need to be bolstered in that. I'm going to have all the tools I need to navigate this changing healthcare landscape, but also continue to have an impact in my community. I've always aspired to think smarter, not harder, because I knew there was only one of me and tens of thousands of people that needed care. So I always knew I was going to have to leverage my impact in a certain way. Now, with the help of the frame that the Clinical Scholars Program gives me around what are all the domains and means of influence within a system if you want to inspire change, I feel much more prepared to advocate for the changes that need to happen, to communicate to the folks that I'm really trying to reach with our messaging about, hey, mental health services, they can be for everyone and we're all stumbling right now. Communicate the needs to the people that need it, and also bring on board other partners and advocates and potential champions for this area that need to be brought together. And I want to say that knowledge about how to configure a team, what do you need on it, and being honest with yourself about what your strengths and weaknesses are, and doing everything you can to train up and know, okay, this one's not my norm or my easiest reach, but I know how to do that now because I've been trained to do it. And because every lesson that they give, you take it in and apply it. And there you go. You're able to have impact in all of these ways. And so now the question is, okay, which impact do I want to have? Because I can leverage all of these. The is to not pick those two. Okay, well, now I need to know, when do I need them? And now I know, even if they're not my favorite, I can absolutely get them done when I need to. Just got to put in the work. And so I think that's the impact that I hope to have. And maybe one last impact, actually, it occurs to me that there's a third impact, which is when we gather as a cohort, as cohort 4, as part of the Clinical Scholars Program, there are times when I really see my role within the cohort as providing perspective and encouragement to the other clinical scholars that I get to work with as part of my cohort, not just with my own Resilience Hawaii team, but across the cohort. All of those connections and invigorating and encouraging folks within the cohort, I think, is the other impact that I hope to achieve. Because I know there are some folks that I get to train with that are going to change the world. And so if I can encourage them along the way, maybe give them a different wording or language or encouragement to see it from a different perspective, I feel like that's a great gift. One of the other participants during our most recent retreat had said to us, "Oh, I always appreciate hearing the Hawaii perspective because it reminds me of how big the world is. Even if it's just articulating that we're eating breakfast when they're just about time for dinner. Even just that kind of change of perspective can sometimes help somebody open up and see their vision more clearly." I think there are also other times when, because um, learning about how challenging it can be for others to engage in conflict and negotiation and knowing, okay, this is an area I've had a little bit more training. It's kind of a comfortable area, but seeing how much folks in the cohort um, had to sort of rise to that one and know that was their least favorite place. I think for me, that was a really exciting opportunity to be a source of encouragement, maybe give them some words, and also create some space so that they could tangle in that area because I needed space in another area to really get in there and learn the pieces that I needed to add to my toolkit. So I think that idea of being a positive presence among my fellow cohort members, is probably maybe the third place that I hope to have an impact over the remaining of the time that I'm in the Clinical Scholars Program. At the end of the day, I feel really confident that I'll be able to take what was given to me as part of this program and actually have a big impact in the world, as big as I could envision, and in some ways bigger. And that's just so exciting to me. Um, and that's saying a lot at this time, to say that I feel invigorated as a leader, that I feel inspired to keep trying, and that I still feel confident I can have an impact. Even at this time, where all hands are on deck just providing services. Man, that says a lot about the support that I've gotten from the program. And I'm really grateful. Thank you so much.